It was an animal attack, spin-off episode selected.
It's 15th Century Rose!
Lauren Cohan, my love, my icon, my
Who
queen.
I've been binging The Walking Dead, and I've gotten to the part where she's the main character. It's
Yes.
been so wild to bounce back and forth between these Rose episodes and The Walking Dead episodes where it's like she's using this English accent as Rose.
Yeah.
Which sometimes slips a bit because she is American English. Or English American.
I would say American English. I think in her real life, she has like an American accent. I looked her up recently in an interview. But it's possible, I mean, she's been working in America a lot longer than she has in England at this point. So maybe she just naturalized her voice. I don't know. I'd have to find a really early one. I met her in Supernatural as...
Oh wow,
what
she
her
was
name?
busy in this era.
Yes, yeah, but this was early Supernatural. This was like 06, 07. She was quite
wow.
much
Okay.
younger. She's this thief in the early seasons of Supernatural who has like an on-again, off-again thing with Dean. They're on opposite ends typically of a situation because Sam and Dean are like...
Is she his Electra? His Catwoman?
Kind of like that. Yes, exactly that. And she comes back for a couple of episodes. It's like they meet her while they're trying to get some artifact that she's stealing to sell for profit, but they're trying to use it to break some curse. And so then halfway through the plot, it's like, well, we have to work together because some demon is trying to kill all of us. And then she comes back later and some artifact has cursed her and she's here knocking at their door for help. And it's like, well, Miss Ma'am, you've screwed us over a number of times, but we're good people, so we have to help you. And then she and Dean sleep together, obviously. She was fun. She was a lot of fun.
I was really enjoying her as Maggie on The Walking Dead.
Yes.
A very dangerous show where it's ordinary people going up against these mostly sci-fi but essentially supernatural threats because it is zombies. And I like every time something happens, I'm just like, if only Rose was here.
She could sort them out.
She could sort them out. I mean, I don't know. How would a zombie bite affect a vampire?
I don't. What is the zombie bite? I know at the end of season 1, they go to that place where it's supposed to be like we've made it, we're safe, like lab.
Yeah, it's definitely a world with like sci-fi elements. So, you know, following that logic, the science should not affect Rose as a magical vampire.
Right, exactly. But then at the same time, sometimes they'll do science and magic in the Vampire Diaries.
You know?
Her name was Bella in Supernatural, Bella Talbot.
And then she came back as a vampire. Coincidence? I think not. Also, CW, if you're listening, I know I talk a lot of shit, but you have favorites who you reuse again and again. So
I mean,
give me a call. I can also do accents.
Wait, have you been on a... Well, this would have been WB at the time, I think, when she was on Supernatural. Have you been on a WB or CW production?
I've never done that. I'm just saying, like, if they hire me one time, now I'm in their books.
You're in. We're gonna make it happen.
Because we've seen Arrowverse characters in TVD and
Right.
Supernatural and Gossip Girl and Pretty Little Liars. Like, they're all intertwined.
Listen, you've done History Channel, you've done HBO, Netflix now. I mean, it's only a matter of time.
Hopefully. I mean, when it comes to Netflix, we all live in fear. Because
And I mean, part of it is the horror, right, of learning about this vampire who feeds off of other vampires.
Yeah.
So that's fun. Played by another Supernatural actor,
Another-
Sebastian Roche. Yeah, he's also an icon. He was an angel, I think, named Balthazar, who's a recurring character. He was friends with Castiel, the like main angel of the show, the one who is allies with.
I know
rebels.
Castiel. I mean,
Right.
you
I
know
mean-
I'm Castiel based on cultural osmosis.
Based on that horrible finale.
The Destiel of it all.
Oh god.
Gosh, CW, just the same.
Right. Exactly.
Like any show I watch.
So much so that when you see them at cons, and they're all together, it's all the Vampire Diaries and the Supernatural and like one other show that's about as popular. They all do the same con circuits.
Because I'm thinking like, if I just take Vampire Diaries as like my starting point, I know that Jules was in One Tree Hill. She is engaged to Lucas at the start of season 5, which is post high school time jump.
Woof.
I
Okay.
know that her man Brady is Oliver Queen.
Of course. You have filled this city.
Does the Chicago universe not also exist on CW?
No, so that's on NBC.
Oh, okay,
yeah. So
okay.
that's a separate tree. That's a alternate universe. That's Earth 2.
even through like the Arrowverse, I know like for instance, she had an arc in Gossip Girl.
Oh yeah, she was also in Melrose Place, but I don't know if that was on the CW.
I'm not sure. That's an older one.
Yeah,
But maybe
but that
because the CW is actually older than I thought.
That had Sean Sipos, who plays Aaron Whitmore. He was one of the main characters in that.
And we know Dr. Wes Maxfield was in The Flash.
Right, yes, Rick Cosnett played Eobard Thawne. No, he played Eddie Thawne, a descendant of Eobard Thawne.
Eddie Thawne. Also, Gina Torres, who is Bree, she is in Gossip Girls. She is Vanessa's mother.
Okay. Who's Vanessa?
I don't know if you've watched the show. You would.
I've watched like 3 episodes of Gossip Girl total.
The brunette main girly who's not Blair. If you've ever seen another brunette girl, like in promo material or anything.
Here are the people I know from Gossip Girl. Chuck, Blair, Serena, Dan, Nate, Michelle Trachtenberg.
Michelle Trachtenberg is a recurring antagonist. She's never a main character in that
those
show.
are all the people I know, unfortunately, from Gossip Girl.
Who, for what it's worth, she was on Buffy on the network that would become the
Right, the WB. Yes.
We've got Smallville, where both Stefan and Damon's actors appeared at different times.
Oh, wow. That's nice. Oh, I wonder if, what's that angel show, Steph? Speaking of angels, what's that angel show Paul Wesley was on? I wonder if that was on the CW. There's that 3-episode, like, miniseries. I think it might have been called Fallen, where I think he plays the son of Lucifer.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
Have you? Surely I would have mentioned this. Let me look it up. Not Stefan. His name is Paul Wesley, not Stefan Salvatore.
Paul Wesley. He was Lucas Luthor in Smallville, Alexa's younger half-brother.
Oh,
shows up for
cute.
1 episode, never returns, but also the story treats him like he doesn't exist.
Oh.
Because whenever they make references to Lex's family and numerous other like
Relations.
secret siblings that he has, Lucas is never brought up.
He
just, like, stopped
retconned
existing.
out of the story. What are the chances? Yes, there's a miniseries where he plays a guy called Aaron Corbett, who's in high school, of course, and finds out he's Nephilim, a human-angel hybrid. Ooh. This came out in 2006, and I remember watching it on TV probably a couple years later because we didn't get it at the same time. And it was on... Oh, it's listed as a TV movie in IMDb. ABC Family Original Movie.
Gosh.
But nearly a year later, it was followed up with 2 other parts of equal length over the course of a weekend.
Yes, that one. What did ABC Family briefly become? Freeform. Or something like that.
Are they not that anymore?
That's where the Fosters was. I think they might have changed back. I'm not sure.
That would be crazy if they did. They'd be like, hey, we tried it out for a bit. Yeah, we're just not feeling it. The brand synergy wasn't working, which is like, yeah, I could have told you that. No, yeah, it's still... Well, they changed the symbol.
Oh, okay.
It looks worse. That's so weird. Yeah, anyway.
Ooh, okay, we've gotten away from
yeah,
ourselves.
Sorry. Yeah.
Although I will say I apparently have a lot of doppelgangers. I'm always being told I look like people.
Oh.
So, yeah. If I ever get caught on camera, like, shoplifting, I'll just be like, it wasn't me. I have a long history of people who look like me.
Like, listen, there's just this face is... Oh, there's this actor called Mawaan Rizwaan? I might be thinking of his brother. That's the thing. He looks a lot like his brother, who I don't think is his twin. So Mawan's the one I'm thinking of. He's a comedian, an English comedian, and he has a song that you might have seen on Twitter called Are You Checking Me Out or Are You Just a Racist?
I haven't seen that. He is very pretty.
Yes, he's gorgeous.
As is his 175, short king.
They're both very short. Yes. Not very short, just shortish. So in the song, there's various verses of people he encounters where he's trying to figure out, are they like interested in me or are they just like clocking me as a racist, being like, go back to your country or whatever. So it's really funny. And in the third verse, like the first one's, he thinks the guy's checking him out, but it's a racist. In the second verse, he thinks it's a racist because of the previous experience, but it's a guy who was checking him out. In the third experience, it's someone who's kissing their assumedly girlfriend, but also eyeing him while doing that. And he's like, well, now I can't tell. What's the vibe here? The guy comes over and he's like, oh no, how's this going to resolve? And then they're like, oh, I loved you in that one show. And then he's like, oh, you weren't racist or checking me out. You're confusing me with my far more famous brother.
There's a Nabhan?
Yes.
I might be pronouncing that wrong. Is that his brother?
So that's why I thought it was his name accidentally in the credits of Chaos. Because his brother's in Chaos as Dionysus. Do you know about Chaos, by the way?
No, I don't.
It's a Netflix show.
Is that a Greek thing?
Yes, strangely. Visually and physically, it's modern, right? See, it's very, you know what? It's very Romeo plus Juliet 1996. Where everything physically is recognizable to our modern world, but everyone is people from ancient Greece. So Jeff Goldblum is Zeus, which I mean is the big get, right? And he's in like a palatial mansion in the nice suburbs of this area, but it's Mount Olympus. He's in Mount Olympus. And so it's following a bunch of characters from Greek mythology, and it's about the downfall of Zeus that's being orchestrated somehow by Prometheus. I'm only 2 episodes in, but it's a lot of people who have been talking about it have enjoyed it. It was like within weeks canceled by Netflix. So it's like, all right, well. But I said I'd watch it because I was like, that was so quick. And after so many people saying how good it was, it's not going to be one of those situations where I was like, that was clearly going to be canceled. Why bother? I kind of want to see what's going on. So far, very good. And it's only 8 episodes, which I'm looking for like low investments at this point in my life.
Well, I am disappointed to hear it's already canceled.
Yeah. Everyone was like, Jesus Christ, it hasn't even been a month since it's been out. Like, what is this decision based on?
I'm at a stage now where I'm like, Netflix, you now have to prove yourself to me.
Right.
Give me 3 seasons and then I'll start your show. Because Dead Boy Detectives, I was like, I'm not even going to entertain this.
Right.
I refuse. And then it got canceled. I was like, well, there it is.
And this thing is, do you remember Stannis Baratheon from
Yes,
Game
I
of
do.
Thrones?
I remember him every time someone says... So stupid. This is not why I remember him.
Okay.
But this is an example of when he pops into my head, unrelated to Game of Thrones. I remember him whenever someone says less, but they mean fewer.
Oh, and he makes that correct.
There's the scene in Game of Thrones. And I love it.
I was going to say, is that
because
when
he
you
does
fell
it
in
and
love
it
with
seems-
that character?
It seems instinctive. Someone says less and he's like, fewer.
Fewer.
It was like, huh? And he's like, nothing. Like, it was just a reflex.
Exactly. It's a very familiar experience, in fact. But yes, he is Prometheus in Chaos, and he looks really good in a way that's like, as Stannis, like, they're not trying to, like, he's not supposed to be appealing as Stannis Baratheon, but as Prometheus, he has a full, like, beard, he's got a salt and pepper thing going on, he's shirtless because, of course, he's on that mountain getting pecked by a bird, and then every now and then, Zeus will summon
You said
him.
pecked, and I thought you said pegged.
I mean, listen, Hades 2 game people, let me know if that happens, because everybody's on about Prometheus in that game. But Zeus will summon him, and suddenly he's in like a hotel room, like white robe, and it's like, why is this kind of working? Why does he look so glorious in sunlight? It's got Orpheus and Eurydice, and Orpheus kind of sucks, which, you know, I'm very pleased by this interpretation. Because we watched Hadestown that one time, and I was not impressed by Orpheus, so I'm like, yeah,
Let's
see an interpretation.
You didn't like the falsetto.
I didn't appreciate the falsetto. I was like, everyone's eating him up in the song.
His King of Shadows, King of Shades refrain was stuck in my head and has been stuck in my head since then.
I mean, listen, the music in Hadestown is so good. And no fault of the performer. He sounds good. I was just like, the style doesn't suit your voice. Everybody's eating you up in this when you're supposed to be the best singer. I don't know what to tell you, man. Anyway, Orpheus kind of sucks in the show, which I like. If we're gonna retell myths where we buff away the bad and make certain situations look better than they did, then let's do the opposite too. Let's take like one of the stories of like true love and be like, well, what was really going on here? Which I like.
I've seen that done with fairy tales a lot, often with grim dark, but also with like parody things. Like in the Fables comics, where I think there is only one Prince Charming. He's just a hoe who appears in every fairy tale.
That's so good. That's actually really good. He's all the princes.
He is all the princes.
Oh, I love that.
I think one of his quotes is that I'm really good at falling in love. I'm just not really good at the happily ever after part.
Whoa. Goodness gracious. I'm thinking of, two people. I'm thinking of the actual Prince Charming from Once Upon a Time. But he was just like devious in nature. There wasn't anything about like sexual exploits, I don't think. In fact, the one woman we see and interact with is Jack, who is his friend. So that's kind of interesting. And then also Bash from Reign, which was a CW show about Mary, Queen of Scotland, from her like rise in the court of France. Bash is the bastard younger son of the king, so there are no expectations of him. He's just kept in court because the king likes him. He has a child with his wife who's a true heir, but he doesn't really like his wife that much. But
I mean, business arrangement,
Right,
right?
exactly. Catherine de Medici, was that her name? But his second son was the child of his most favorite mistress. So he's kind of a favorite. So he gets to just play around and have fun, and he is also a hoe. But a really nice dude. Did you know that Ian Somerhalder had retired from acting?
I did. Did I not share? I think I shared a tweet that was a reaction to that.
Yes, the recent discussion of that. But as it turns out, he's been retired since like the beginning of this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I looked it up and I saw an article from like February that was like, yeah, retired actor Ian Somerhalder, and I was like, oh. All right.
If that's what he wants to do, I mean, look, it's not an easy industry to be in, both just in terms of getting work, but also just like psychologically, whether you're employed or not.
Absolutely.
So if people get over it at some stage, I'm like, I understand. I hope I never get to that point, but I can completely understand people being like, yeah, I'm done with this. Peace out.
And clearly him and his family have the cachet to just like retire to a farm. So, great for you. You've got that kind of money.
He's got them CW royalties. Nikki's got that Twilight money. I think they'll be fine.
Listen, he's got that bourbon brand. He's fine. He's doing great. And good for him.
I think it's so cute that those kids, well, whether they care or not, but they're like, their parents are actors who played two of the most famous vampires in the 21st century.
Truly just finally getting old enough to see the internet and being like, whoa, okay, there's a lot of you guys all over. What's that about? And it's like, okay,
with
honey,
fangs.
We need to let you know about the vampire craze of the 2010s.
The vampire case of the 2010s. If I was Nikki, I'd be like, no shade, but my hard work contributed to the series that helped your dad get super famous being created in the first place.
But in a way, the origin of his story did help create the origin of my story. So it's all about reciprocal circular economies. That's what it's about.
Ebbing and flowing. Everything is connected. I like the symmetry of when actors who are like tangentially connected by genre, but have not necessarily ever worked together, end up in a relationship. It's like Leighton Meester being married to the main actor from the OC. Like very much two people known for being in like teen drama shows.
Now let me try and remember who the main actor from the OC is.
I don't know his name.
Is that Adam Brody?
Oh, maybe?
Was he just in that Netflix show with Kristen Bell, Nobody Wants This?
I wouldn't know.
Where they were like, you've heard of hot priests, now a hot rabbi.
The fact that I don't even know his name is because of the fact that the OC is from like well before I was a teenager.
Yeah.
So I would not have watched it.
Let me look it up. I think it was Adam Brody and Ben McKenzie, though.
Yes, Adam Brody is her spouse.
Okay, didn't know that.
I don't believe they've ever worked together, but it was just like a random thing that happened in like the 2010s that it was like, oh, they're married now. And it was like, oh, haha, Gossip Girl actress marries OC
an OC actress. They went to the same mixer, and that's how they met. Was the OC on the CW? No.
I don't even know. The OC was like a 2000s show is the thing. I think it was done by the time Gossip Girl dropped.
That's true. Maybe the Gossip Girl was like
because my brother was watching the OC when he was a teen, and my brother's 6 years older than me.
Oh, wow. There you go. It was on Fox, as it turns out.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
so technically its successor is Glee.
No. What a thought. Oh yeah, Rachel Bilson was in the OC. I know her because of Heart of Dixie, which is this little show where she like has to move to the South for whatever reason. I think she's a doctor.
Is she the main character?
She's the heart.
Okay, then I
question.
have seen her face. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, yeah.
And Jefferson Davis, that actor is one of the male leads in that show. Jefferson Davis of Black Lightning, to be clear.
Oh my gosh, is that Kelly Donovan was in the OC?
Yes, Melinda Clark.
Everything is connected.
Everything is connected. Ooh.
Gosh.
Oh, you haven't listened to Brat, so you won't get that. It's fine.
No, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I'm a bad queer. I did not have a Brat summer.
It is true, but I won't hold it against you.
In my defense, it was winter in our country.
Don't let them know. I've been hiding in plain sight. They don't know I was having a Brat winter. I've been doing so well to pretend. You want to talk about a trauma conga line?
Has that become a part of your vocab?
Honestly, in the edit, I heard it back and I was like, TV Tropes is insane. But also, it feels good to say, I'm not going to lie, trauma conga line. It feels good rolling off my tongue. Maybe they made some points, I don't know.
They're a popular site among geeks. But obviously...
I resist the knee jerk to like codify every single thing into the trope. It's like the trope is meant to be a tool to help you understand text better. It's not meant to be like a sticker that you can apply on everything, which is what that site, well, maybe not the site itself, but the people who use it a lot and cite it a lot kind of like lean into.
I mean, the site does go out of its way to, it's almost like Wikipedia, like it'll differentiate between tropes that are either connected or similar. It'll try to clarify that, oh, if it's ABC, it's not this trope. It needs to be like A and C only. If you add the B, it becomes something else.
Yeah, but I guess that's what I'm resisting, is that like the need to very neatly assign every story choice into a box that can be labeled and then applied in every other story you've ever seen. Like, obviously every story has been told and everybody uses certain devices to tell their story, and that makes sense, but it's like it doesn't need to be exhaustive, I guess, is what I'm trying to like, you know, I don't know.
I like categorizing things. I'm not a scientist,
No,
but
course.
it's fine.
It's not that big a deal. I'm just like, every time I'm just like, all right, TV tropes. It's fine. They're fine.
I mean, it
fine.
did start off as specifically a Buffy the Vampire Slayers.
That makes so much sense.
Vampire Slayer centered site, so maybe that's an observation of Joss Whedon's writing.
Very suited to Joss Whedon's writing. Yes. Whenever I see TV shows, I'm like, there's some Whedon energy to this. Because I mean, talk about the guy who made Cabin in the Woods, right?
Yeah. Back then, I still pretty much hated Klaus. I would have loved to see him get his comeuppance before he gets retconned into a misunderstood anti-villain.
Who's calling him an anti-villain?
That's sort of the framework that he fits into, because he never becomes truly a good person, but it's like, yeah, he's always paling in comparison to the other evils that he's facing.
But it's like, is he in pursuit of some greater good? Because it's like...
Well, no, it's like anti-hero would be like the Punisher, you know? Killing people in the mafia, but not afraid to gun them down at dinner with their families if that's what it takes. And it's like, well, Captain America wouldn't do that. He'd be like, let's arrest people.
Right.
Let's
Which is
trust
like,
the
okay,
courts.
Captain
I
America.
can't be judge, jury, and executioner. So the opposite of that is like the villain who's like, yeah, you're villainous, but like, you're not Satan. Like, I can see shades of humanity in you where every now and then you are coming from a good place or doing the right thing. And it's like, that's essentially what Klaus becomes in the originals. And I'm like, well, no, you killed Aunt Jenna. You terrorized Catherine for 500 years.
I guess my understanding of anti-villain was different. My understanding is that it's like, you are Satan, but the reason you have chosen to be Satan is to, whether secretly or overtly, benefit like people or a purpose that is in fact altruistic. But it's like, you're willing to like do some heinous shit to see that happen.
I think that's just anti-hero.
I don't know. I'll have to look that up later then. I don't know.
That's the one that I usually enjoy. That person who's like, listen, I will get my hands dirty because nobody else in this group will. But ultimately, I'm still on the side of good, I guess. I'm just not afraid to burn it all down to save the day. Whereas usually protagonists don't go there. Certainly on the Vampire Diaries, that line gets crossed by many a protagonist.
So I'm seeing anti-villain here. There's one thing that says what you're saying about anti-villains, and that's TV tropes. So, you know, that's feel however you want about that.
Compiled by generations of geeks.
Sure. But like everything else is being like, yeah, the anti-villain is the one that plays the villain's game, but towards some sort of good cause.
But then that begs the question, what would an anti-hero be? Because
I guess they're supposed to be similar, but it's like an anti-hero is usually on the side of like protagonists. But like an anti-villain is like, I guess, I'm trying to think of like who would be a good example of an anti-villain then in that sense. My brain went to Vandal Savage immediately, but like in my mind, I would consider him a villain. But like, he certainly is like, hey, this is so humanity can be prepared for the greater evil that goes beyond, right? Like, I'm doing all these very minute evil things on Earth to prepare all of us for the greater evil that I have foreseen through whatever means.
I suppose, I mean, a lot of well-written villains will have motivations that you can at least go, I see why you think you're doing the right thing.
Right. And certainly we've been moving in that direction more recently as we create villains who are like, actually, maybe Like, what's his name? Killmonger is maybe someone I would put in that department.
I would call Killmonger an anti-villain because he's definitely doing evil things, but you can see why it's like, well, yeah, but is it that evil?
He's like, the purpose here is liberation, but like, I will kill anyone in my way.
Maybe the difference between anti-hero and anti-villain just depends on the POV.
Yeah, it could be very that. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, all these words sort of like blur and overlap with each other, that it's like, it's tough to neatly put these things behind rigid lines.
True.
Because your immediate response was, isn't that an anti-hero? And it's like, I'm sure anti-hero and anti-villain are like, there's shades of that in each other. So maybe it's a spectrum and not, 4 boxes of hero, anti-hero, anti-villain, villain.
It's a spectrum.
It's always
While
a spectrum.
Klaus sure does slide ever closer towards hero on that spectrum as he leaves this show, which at this point he has now left. Why is that called White Wolfing? Is it from...
I believe it's a movie. I think very early on the podcast I referred to it as Old Yeller, which was the wrong reference.
Old Yeller, I know that one is rabies. So
Right.
the dog has to be shot because it's a rabbit.
Exactly. You said that and I was like, wait, that doesn't sound like what I'm thinking. But it must be right. Is it not called White Wolf? Is it called White Fang? Am I still
Is it essentially
getting
what
it wrong?
Arya has to do to Nymeria?
Yes, essentially. You like throw stones
Oh,
at the
okay.
dog so that it leaves because
like,
you
"Get
can't
out of
keep
here,
it anymore.
gold scamp."
Yes, that's the quote. Schmidt does it in New Girl to Cece. He like throws stones at her. She's like, "Are you white?" Well, I guess it's white fanging, not white wolfing. No, it can't be white fang. Guys, am I stupid? It might be White Fang.
I know there is a story about a dog called White Fang. I've never read it, but I do know that exists. I know that's a thing.
Oh, because he's a wolf, not a dog. So the main character has to go back to San Francisco, which is a city. So he can't take the wolf with him. So he has to let White Fang run free. And then he uses
White Fang is a wolf? I
Yes.
thought White Fang was a dog.
I also thought he was a
Gosh.
dog. So I've been using this reference wrong this whole time. Now that I think about it, White Wolf is... What's his name? It's Bucky Barnes.
Bucky Barnes?
Stupid. Why do I ever speak? Oh, God.
Gosh, everything is just blurring together. It's
It's White Fang. It's White Fang. I'm so sorry. But yeah, that's when he throws and goes, "Get out of here. Nobody wants you anymore. Leave." And he's crying the whole time.
Were you evoking that clip from Little Women where they're like, "Hey, hey y'all, how y'all doing?" As they walk in.
From Little Women?
Yeah, the reality
movie?
show.
Oh, the one with little people. Yes. I thought you were talking
Yes.
about like Joe March. Is that what it is? Florence Pugh,
I don't
Saoirse
know
Ronan. You don't know Little Women?
I have not watched that. Maybe I've heard of it and I forgot. I haven't watched it.
Okay, it's the one where it's Timothée Chalamet and Saoirse Ronan.
He's everywhere. I'm surprised he's not in the MCU, frankly. I don't know how he's managed to dodge that. They didn't get their claws into him.
They were gonna hire him for Eros, but they got Harry Styles instead.
If they'd done the Young Avengers trajectory sooner, I believe Timothy is Jewish.
I don't know.
I think he is.
I know he
Unless I'm
wasn't
making
Call
that
Me
up.
By Your Name. I don't know about his life.
If he is Jewish, they could have had him as their Billy Kaplan.
Let's not get into that.
But it's too late now.
Yeah.
He's grown.
Yes, Austrian
and-
Jewish descent and Russian Jewish descent.
There we go. So,
Agatha All Along, right? Which I haven't watched.
I've watched it.
Have you watched it?
Yeah.
Not for any particular reason. I haven't watched any MCU again in the last like 2.5 years, but from what I'm hearing, it's been well received. And I was just like, it seems so stupid to like put out a decently good project and just like not make this one consideration that you know is a consideration, not just broadly in the industry, but specifically in your franchise. Because a lot of people will argue, what does it matter? They chose the best person for the role, blah, blah, blah. Every defense under the sun, that's...
Which
to,
I'm like, no shade to that,
Firstly,
that sweet boy.
no shade to Joe Locke. I love him.
You will not be able to convince me that that decision was not made because
He wasn't the
Little
most
Hearts Stop
popular popular thing
fans
right
were like,
now.
oh my gosh, wouldn't it be cute if Kit and Joe played Billy and Teddy?
Right.
I'm like, you can't lie to me, Kevin Feige, and say that's not why you chose to do this.
This makes the most sense. And you know what? Fair enough. Sometimes there's like marketing and executive decisions that factor into like who are we picking to play this role. Because they've seen the art. They know people were jonesing for Billy Kaplan and Emperor Deken, whatever. It's not Deken. Emperor Deken's a different guy. What's his
Doric.
name? Doric. Emperor Doric the Third or whatever. You saw the fan cast.
Doric the Eighth.
And you went, absolutely, we will do that. Because what's his name? Kit Connor is also in talks to do something with Marvel. So presumably, regardless of what Agatha All Along the show was saying, he's probably going to be
I
Teddy.
really hope that's not the case. It would be so cheesy, and I'll be like, I can't take. And a lot of the fans, I mean, if they are reading tweets, I hope they're seeing the ones where fans are like, please don't do this. This will be so corny. We don't want to see a Heartstopper with superheroes.
That'd be so fun. I'd love to see it so they get to act a little more adult, honestly.
I'm like, oh, let this actor explore his chemistry with a
someone
different
else.
scene partner.
God damn. Let it be Scar from my favorite MCU show.
Okay, well, let's not get wild.
Hulk's son will return.
Gosh.
Talk about Hulkling, am I right?
When Scar shows up and is the straightest dude bro you've ever seen, I will laugh in your face. When they pair him with Kamala.
Oh God,
just to spite you.
Imagine. I'd lose my mind. Anyway.
I love that velocity equals zero.
You said it and I cackled so loud. You said, and then the acceleration increases downwards. I was like, perfect. No notes. As a STEM kid, you made me infinitely happy that day.
That, what is it? That 9.8 meters per second or whatever it is.
Actually, it's
I can't
9.816 if we want to go to a third point of...
See, when I... Back in my day, when I was in high school...
It was 10?
The 9.8 was actually fresh. They were like, it used to be 10, but we've now, made it more specific. It's 9.8.
Yeah. Then it was 9.82 when I got to grade 11 matric, and then because we were getting, because we were in the cap system. Exactly. And then I got to uni where I was doing like proper physics, and I guess it would have just been in physics. No, calculus as well. And they were like, no, it's got to be 9.816 because a lot of forces and like force diagrams and systems of equations that have to do with like vectors and stuff. If you're doing a real life application, gravity usually is acting on everything. So you have to take it into consideration.
That makes sense. I remember when I was in university, the people who were doing STEM, I remember one person mentioning just offhandedly, they were like, oh, Newton's 3 laws that we learned in high school. Yeah, turns out there's a lot more than that. And I was like, I don't even want to know.
Then you remember the law of thermodynamics that we learned? Also one of several.
Oh, gosh.
The one that's like energy cannot be created or destroyed. It is either like transferred or transformed or whatever. Everything is conserved. Well, firstly, that's not entirely true. It's a very specific set of conditions for it to be conserved. It has to be an isolated system. And then it's like, that's just the second law. No, the first law of thermodynamics. I forget the second one. And then there's a 0th law of thermodynamics. That is the one that broke my brain. I was like, how is there a 0th law? How is there a law before the first law? And they were like, well, when we discovered the first law, we didn't know that there were further fundamentals to break down into, so we had to call it the 0th law. And I was like, all right, I think I'm done, guys. I think I'm going to go into finance. Their silly little numbers make more sense than yours. And turned out they didn't. It's all nonsense. All of it is nonsense, and I'm tired of numbers. I joke, I'll know.
I remember there being a 0th law. This is a science fiction thing, interestingly enough. The law of robotics, which science fiction writers often use when there are artificial intelligence worked into like stories. The thing to like protect mankind from their own creations was the 3 laws of robotics, which I think law 1 was no robot may harm a human or by inaction allow a human to come to harm. Then the second law is a robot must obey any order given to it by a human, except where that contradicts the first law.
Okay.
And then the third law is a robot must protect its own existence, except where that contradicts the first 2 laws.
Interesting.
And then sometimes the 0th law is that the robot has to obey the 3 laws.
because it may do some computations and realize in order to successfully carry out these 3 laws, I must destroy all humans.
Which is what happens in iRobot, starring Will Smith from the 2000s.
There you go.
The Viki AI is like, all right, you said I can't, by inaction, allow humans to come to harm. Well, allowing you to be free and not slaves to your hyper-intelligent robotic creations is causing you harm because you're like killing each other and polluting your environment. So I'm just going to enslave all of you. I might have to kill some of you to do that, but technically, killing some of you is saving the others. So if I spare you, I'm by inaction letting the global population come to harm. And I'm like, the mental gymnastics of this machine.
And they have more processing power than you do, bitch. Or at least they can use it better than you. I was actually going to ask if those laws of robots comes from like the era of Azimov, because I think iRobot is a Asimov story. Yeah, I think it was a book.
Yeah, I think it comes from sometime in the 20th century when people were writing all this sci-fi speculative fiction.
Yes, a fix-up collection made up of science fiction short stories by American writer Isaac Asimov.
His surname is really Azimov? That sounds so sci-fi.
Well, most Eastern European surnames do, I guess. Let me confirm. I don't know for certain. American writer from Boston University. Petrovici, Russian SFSR, on an unknown date between 1919 and 1920. Yeah, Eastern European.
Boston boy, like our queen Emma Frost. Well, not a boy, but she's a girl.
Darling.
For the sake of a ship that was now essentially sinking because he was leaving the ship.
For planks on a dock. Like they put together one, what do you call the sides of a boat? Mast? Mizzen? I don't know.
The mast is the thing in the middle holding up the sails.
All right, fair enough. I've been on a clipper yacht one time. I've been on a ferry, and that's about all I've got.
Oh. I've been on I don't know what kind of a boat it was. It was like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
We were on holiday. That was, I think that's the only time I've been on a boat.
Oh, we were on a holiday on a boat. Okay.
No, we weren't on a boat for the holiday.
We were like sailed to Menorca.
It was when we were living overseas. During that time, like during the school holidays, we took a trip, and then part of that trip was like, oh, let's go look at these, was it dolphins or something? And for that little outing, you had to be on the boat.
Okay.
Yeah, we stayed in this cute little town in Australia called Jervis Bay, which I always remember because my mother and my brother kept calling it Jarvis Bay. And I was like, no, Jarvis is Tony Stark's butler, who is an AI in the MCU. This is right. Jervis Bay with an E.
Maybe that's how the Australians were pronouncing it. As Jarvis Bay. It just sounds like Jarvis. I get it. I was on a clipper yacht. I was selected they took like, I think 10 of us from the grade. This was in 2009. Maybe slightly earlier. 2008. It was 2008, and there was a race going on, or about to happen, where a bunch of countries sail clipper yachts sort of around the world in the oceans. So we got to see South Africa's clipper yacht, which was called South Africa 2010 and Beyond, because the World Cup was about to happen. And I remember it very vividly because we went on a ferry, first of all, so that was fun. This was in Wilson's Wharf in Durban, and we went on a little round trip, like 20-minute, 30-minute trip. And then we went on the yacht, and then that was the interesting bit where he was describing the different parts of it and how you live as somebody who's at sea for a significant amount of time. So that was interesting. And then like there was a section to ask questions, and a bunch of us raised our hands, and he ignored my hand the entire time. For a hot second, like halfway through where he wasn't picking me, I was like, okay, maybe it's a racist thing. But then a different black kid lifted their hand and he answered them. So it's like, okay, so it's just me as a person then, I guess. You just didn't like my vibe. Someone even called attention. They said, hey, Sandile has a question. And he's like, and we're moving on and we're heading out. It's like, okay. What
Your own Severus Snape?
Apparently. I was the Harry to a Severus. It's like, have you met my dad? When?
I used to hate when teachers seemingly wouldn't see your hand. I now that I'm grown up, I'm like, okay, if you were the kind of person who often knew the answer, they were definitely deliberately ignoring you because, you know, other people must participate.
Yeah, sure.
But when you're a child, you don't know that. And it's like, why can't you see me? And the thing that kids used to do is they would like wiggle their hand and sometimes they would snap their fingers, which teachers would hate. They'd always be like, don't snap at me. I'm not your dog.
It's like, I'm 10, Mrs. Norbury. I think that's a lot.
And it's like, well, apparently your eyes aren't working, so I was trying to use sound to trigger one of your other senses and get you to look my way. Hey,
here's the thing about kids, they need attention. I don't know if you knew. I don't know. To this day, I never figured out what that was about. The yacht was fun though.
Spin-off episode ends. Email us at animalattackpod@gmail.com. Tweet us at animattackpod. That's at ANIM attackpod. Cheers.